Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Economies across the globe are beginning to open up, and that of course includes Dubai. But as Dubai reopens its borders, will visitors find its business landscape dramatically different? To share his take, we're joined on the show tonight by a very special guest, the Director of International Offices with the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Omar Khan. So thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
I believe that Dubai is well on its way towards becoming a digital economy. But what has that meant for businesses, both traditional and contemporary alike, who are looking to find their footing in Dubai?
Well, there are opportunities. It depends on who you are, whether you are existing business or you are thinking about coming here. Now, the first thing I would say about the digital economy of Dubai, it's quite vibrant. The Dubai government has been exceedingly pioneering and in some cases even ahead of the private sector. So leading the way and setting the example and the pace as well. Now it's going to shift to high gear, where it was recently announced by the government of the UAE in Dubai that there will be even higher digitization. Within 2 years, our footprint, our branch footprints for the government service centers will be reduced by half. So again, this shows you how serious we are. And I think there's so many developments within, whether you are looking at e-commerce, you're looking at wholesale, retail, B2B, cross-border trade, supply chain, logistics, because time is money, time is of the essence. And this is something that we are implementing with a lot of new ministries as well that have been assigned the task of pushing the digital economy beyond what you will see around us in the competition. Dubai is small, so we have to be at least 5 to 10 years ahead of the curve. So you will see a lot of input coming, a lot of talent coming from around the world, and this is something we were working with our entrepreneurs, our startup, Dubai Startup Hub, where we are attracting a lot of the talent as well, because Dubai is going to be the place where you make it and you showcase your achievement and your technology. And through it, you can even go beyond the borders of Dubai and the UAE.
Well, help me understand specifically what the Chamber of Commerce and Industry has done with respect to familiarizing new businesses with some of the nuances of operating in a digital economy.
The incentives to come into Dubai now have been increased dramatically. A lot of the measures that the governments have taken, such as the $100 billion stimulus for the banking sector, all the different reduction in operating costs, reduction in 15% in fuel costs, in 11 to 15% in rental costs, real estate costs, all the different resources now for the new entrants into the market are like going to turbo boost their business. These were made with the existing business community in mind, but the new entrant into the market is going to have a lot of incentives. But it is a limited window of opportunity, and I urge a lot of the businesses to think about being here before that opportunity closes.
Well, switching gears a bit, certain technologies and sectors have certainly outperformed in the wake of this pandemic, whether it be technologies such as 3D printing, artificial intelligence powered platforms, whether it be such sectors such as fintech or blockchain for that matter. And Dubai has truly led the charge with respect to some of the most relevant global developments across these sectors. But how can India better capitalize on and contribute to this new wave of innovation?
India is over 1 billion people of talent. It's over 1 billion people of potential challenges, which then produce solutions. So again, as a breeding ground for a lot of new solutions for urban living, this is something that we definitely need in Dubai. And also, once we test it again, we can take it to all different cities and many different regions around the world. We already have 38,000 registered members and companies that are from India here. Our trade figures are, of course, almost 40 billion, the non-oil trade, that is. And so we have a very low-hanging fruit in our relationship. And even investing into India and connecting with India is getting more and more attractive. As I was there in vibrant Gujarat, where His Excellency the Honorable Prime Minister Modi said that he pledged that he will get India within under the 50th ranking of ease of doing business again. So this is encouraging. Now, to add to this in terms of the opportunity, Dubai Chamber itself has had a very tremendous success with being a gateway for the startup and entrepreneurial businesses. We have run pitch competitions, startup competitions in India, and with roadshows in Delhi and Mumbai. We've worked with Startup India, with FICCI, CII, and many others such as NASCOM as well, to push the opportunities between both sides. And they are limitless, because what we apply to Dubai is applied to the life, to the lifestyle, to the business, to the infrastructure, and it's very high applicability to other developing nations close to us.
You make an excellent point in that India and the UAE have enjoyed a long-standing legacy of bilateral trade. But that said, how do you envisage this relationship evolving going forward? For the time being, India has been among Dubai's top trading partners in the context of the investment domain, the manufacturing domain, the technology domain, for example. Do you expect that trend to continue?
Now, one thing we have maybe forgotten about is because we have so many Indian people living and working here, we've felt so home when we felt we're always connected to India. But sometimes we have to go and research and go into India ourselves, because some of those businessmen have become more Dubai businessmen than India businessmen. So that sort of perception we've been breaking down with our office in Mumbai, that has been going all over the place with exhibitions, events, roadshows, study missions, to really dissect and understand the different parts of India and what each section and each city specializes in, because India is huge. And that means the opportunities are so huge that businessmen might be paralyzed by the choice. And so that's why we as Dubai Chamber and all our partners, we are committed to actually delving deeper into India.
Well, that's certainly very heartening to hear. Let's talk policy for a moment. Can you walk us through some of the fine print with respect to the economic relief package that's essentially unfolding in the UAE, and perhaps some of the specific measures that pertain to small and medium-sized businesses in particular?
Well, 85 to 90% of our members, our 245,000 members, are small to medium. So whatever we do in Dubai and in the UAE generally applies to them. So we don't usually have a very particular attention directly on them, because they are most of the business community. But some of the examples that we have, for example, now when you want to set up businesses, our free zones, for example, can set businesses up virtually with all the documentary requirements. As we know, the shutdown, the lockdown, some documents will be hard to attest and notarize. So again, our free zones have moved to use digital equipment. There's of course the incentives for the 100 billion dirhams into the economy to ensure that the banks, which are the engines that are running, and the real estate entities can support the businesses in the hard times. Now again, while I say the small to medium enterprises are part of the community, we still have so many initiatives, whether it's through angel investor funds and groups, through seed funding, mentoring programs, through our market access programs, where startups and established companies can scale up or have entities that will invest in them and also offtake their services. So again, we are trying to improve the mortality rate or reduce the mortality rate of startups and SMEs, because that's always very difficult, and help them also to accelerate. So again, Dubai is full of startups, it's full of entrepreneurs, full of SMEs. So usually what we're doing in general is listening to their voices and their concerns and their requirements, and also incentivizing them.
And Mr. Khan, by way of closing comments, do you believe that India-based SMEs will continue to flock to the UAE with the same rigor, with the same relevance going forward?
I think they definitely would, and I think we definitely want them to come here. So I think this is going to continue. I think we are going to get engaged more deeply, especially with our office that we have there, the attention that the UAE government and the importance that both governments have put on it, and all the different entities working together in this time specifically. And I think India will really step up. I think India has this great opportunity, especially with Excellency Honorable Prime Minister Modi talking about in his CII summit, talking about Make in India. They're talking a lot about why can't we make this in India? Why can't we manufacture this and process this in India? So I see a lot of these products going outside as well. A huge potential that is less discovered now, even including electronics, 3D printing, high-tech machinery, and so on and so forth. I think that is definitely India is going to step into the limelight in the next few years because they will have this advantage.
Well, with that, it's a wrap. So we've completely run out of time, but we thank you for joining us. And on the other side, we bring you our conversation with Office, a pioneer in the co-working space that is taking all of the pandemic-induced struggles in its stride. All that and more coming up, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, our second the influencer is Office. Let's kick off tonight's show then by welcoming in Amit Ramani of Office joining us live on the show. Amit, good having you joining us on the show. You know, the co-working space has changed so much as we speak. So maybe we can start by talking about your vision and your role and your journey really as an entrepreneur, particularly in the co-working space.
So Nanda, thank you so much for having me on the program. I think I'll start with 2015 when the whole idea got germinated. And the focus was primarily on solving what was a clear business challenge in India, which was essentially around finding quality workspace at an affordable price. So we built it on kind of three principles. First being flexibility. So the user chooses the amount of time they want to use the space and the number of seats or the space that they want to use, right? Second being accessibility. So today, that goal is finally fulfilled where we have close to about 35,000 seats across 70 centers, 10 cities. So essentially within a 15-minute driving radius, you have an office center, right? And the third essentially was the transparency, right? Essentially, you should be able to find a space which is affordable, but also comes without any hassle. So it's a plug and play environment where you can immediately go onto an app, select the space and be in business, right? I mean, so those were the three principles that we worked on. Second aspect, which was very important, we saw this as a supply side solution. So we built the business in partnership with the landlords, wherein almost today about 67% of the business is in partnership with the landlord, which now in these times becomes very important because obviously we benefited through the partnership when the times were good, but when the times are challenging, this is certainly helping us as well. So clearly a supply side strategy of managed aggregation, which got instituted in 2015, is now coming in handy as we are trying to, get over these challenging times.
I want to read out some figures, Amit. 2.2 billion by 2022 is what the kind of valuations that were previously estimated. And a penetration of the co-working space increasing from 0.7% in 2017 to 5.7% again in the same time frame of 2022. But this was done at a time when we, of course, no one could have predicted what was going to happen and the changes that were going to come about thanks to the pandemic. My question to you is, how much have those targets moved? What are the realistic figures that we're looking at this point?
Sure. So obviously the figures were built on a high growth trajectory that was happening in the economic environment. It was also happening in our industry in particular. Now, clearly the COVID challenge will have an impact. Now, currently, if I was to look at, this was March of 2020, as a business, as co-working industry, we were roughly about 2% of the total environment of commercial real estate, which was approximately about, I would say, about 20 million square feet across different operators and across some 200 different companies. Now, my perspective on this is that clearly the number of going to 5 to 6% would get slowed down a bit, because 6 months are going to be uncertain, like every business. We don't know when we'll be able to find the cure and the vaccine. So let's say, if it's a 6 to 9 month challenge and we are able to overcome it, we post that will see in fact higher growth as I see it today, and we see a V-shaped recovery for co-working. And the reason I would explain that is on three things, right? One, companies will look for flexibility. So they don't want to, in this uncertain environment, go and commit to a 6 year or a 9 year lock-in. So clearly co-working will benefit from that. Second, companies would want to transfer their capital investment requirements into an operating investment, right? And clearly co-working helps in that aspect. And clearly office helps because when companies are trying to do business continuity planning, where they are trying to ensure that not everybody is in one location, clearly strategies that we are adopting today, which is obviously you would have a base office, companies would have a base office, could be with AWFIS or some of their own office. Work near home, which would be a remote location, and hopefully that be an office location. And finally is work from home, what we are calling office at home. So if we are looking at these strategies, at least our sense is that the co-working industry will see a upsurge post the challenges are somewhat mitigated as we come with a cure and a vaccine.
You were just talking about work from home, Amit, and that's my next question. And I really want to understand from you, work from home can, of course, be seen as a serious challenge and competition, really, to those in your industry and business. How are you perhaps innovating? What's your view on work from home? Are you perhaps, using that then as a tool yourself when it comes to innovation?
Sure. So, Sunanda, I think two aspects. Our strategy always had been about network of spaces. So that's why we had 70 centers across 10 cities, right? Clearly, the focus was that I should have a center which is in the 15-minute driving radius across all micro markets, right? And we have it today across all the major metro cities. So work near home becomes a reality for people, and we will see a certain uptick from companies that will allow people not to spend 3 hours every day on commute, but be able to get to a center within a 15-minute driving radius. So we certainly feel there'll be an upsurge. Second, we have launched is what we are calling it office at home, right? AWFIS at home. And the focus for us is on three-pronged strategy there. One is on the assessment part, right? I think what everybody is missing in the industry today is that you have to understand, is the organization ready to adapt to work from home? Today, we are fighting a war against the unknown enemy. So everybody was forced to work from home, but organizations will have to understand, are they ready to allow individuals to work from home or the employees to work from home? Second is the manager readiness. And the third is the employee readiness. And our focus there is to assess all three elements for the overall readiness. And I think that's a missing link which nobody is talking about and will become very, very critical. And we have built our own tool that basically helps do that, right? It gives you a score for employer, it gives you a score for the manager, it gives you a score for the employee, and it's already launched. We're already working with multiple companies to help do that assessment. Second is the toolkit, right? It's office at home toolkit, which we have basically curated around the physical infrastructure. So many of us do not even have an ergonomic chair or a desk at home. So how do you ensure that availability? Second is the technology infrastructure, which is basically internet. It would be around the tools like what we are using, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, etc. So an integrated package that allows people to use that. And finally is full readiness at home, which means whatever amenities I have at the office, how can I recreate it at home through providing full-time IT support, providing other kind of change management support, etc. So that which our teams are working with organizations to do that. And the final is our application, which allows you to be connected from home. So it has an attendance management system that allows you to log in from home with geotagging capability. Second, it allows you to go work at a nearest center by having meeting room credits and work near the nearest center passes. And finally, it allows you to do multiple other things like a virtual coffee, like a virtual room where you can go hang out with your other team members, because you're trying to recreate the virtual, you're trying to create the water cooler in a virtual environment, right? And we have built those tools and applications that help mitigate as much of that physical requirement as possible in a tech environment. So we have built that to, completely, it's out there. We are already working with companies on that solution.
Amit, how have you ensured the safety of your own employees, particularly in the business model that you're in? And once we do go back to what perhaps we need to call the normal, once the lockdown lifts, how do you ensure? How are you planning on ensuring the safety of your employees?
Sure. So clearly, from our standpoint, the safety and the wellness of our members, as well as our employees, as well as our extended partners, which are our security guards, pantry, etc., is of the utmost importance. So we have taken a kind of a three-pronged approach here. One in was the physical infrastructure, right? So there we are following social distancing norms by recreating the spaces. We are obviously including hygiene measures, which include, how people access the space, from basic things like thermometer scanning, in terms of the cleaning protocols that we are following, in terms of how we can make access into the space as touchless as possible, right? So we have built an app that allows you to basically, instead of touching a card or a bioprint, basically allows you to scan a QR code to enter the space. Second, we have gone in and redone a lot of our air conditioning systems to essentially ensure that is as safe as possible, with using filters, with using fresh air inlets into the space. We are also working with our members to ensure that they are downloading the government guidelines through the Arogya Setu app, etc. So we are making many of those things, part of the process.
Some experts, reports that I was reading just before this interview are of the opinion that this is perhaps the end of the co-working model as we know it, and that virtual is where all the action is going to really be at now that particularly small businesses have seen the kind of work and the kind of innovation that can be done. I want to get your opinion on that.
So, Sunanda, I think I am absolutely in disagreement that this is the end of the co-working. In fact, this is the epiphany moment where we will pivot and become a larger industry. I'm extremely confident of that as we go forward. I think adapting to the new normal, as I described, a lot of things that we are doing in the short term to ensure the safety and the hygiene and the center readiness. So we are obviously going to follow all those norms. As we go forward, I think once we are able to overcome with a cure or a vaccine, I think people will come back to the physical infra. You can see that in many developed countries where they've opened post their lockdown, everybody wants to get back, right? So physical connect between human beings is at the core of our DNA. And we cannot live in a Zoom or a virtual environment forever. That just does not work with human beings. I'll give you a very simple example. In the US, which is an extremely developed economy, out of the 110 million workforce, only about 4 million people work from home, where homes are larger, technology has never been the problem, internet speeds are good, and so on. And even there, it's about 4% of the total workforce. So clearly, even in India, people will adapt work from home, people will adapt remote working, but they will also need the physical connect of coming into a physical environment. And clearly, in my opinion, co-working will see a resurgence as companies look for flexibility, converting their capital into an operating environment, and look for network of spaces that are closer to their homes. So I completely am on the opposite side. I think this is the eureka moment for co-working. People who adapt, people who innovate are in fact are going to see an upsurge in their business.
Amit, thanks very much for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you.